Let's talk about knee pain for a second. We have two major points above the knee and below the knee. The tendon above the patella is called your quadriceps tendon. Your quadricep muscles converge in that area and become this tendinous thing that pulls the patella up and down. There's also this tendon below the knee that is called the patellar tendon. Now, when we run and we're walking and we're moving, this tendon glides, is like a big pulley back and forth. Sometimes quads pull tighter than what's allowed down here and kind of vice versa. So in running, we have this thing called runner's knee, which is typically patellar tendonitis. You could also have quadriceps tendonitis up here. One of the ways to help get rid of that or prevent it is to strengthen the knee and create a bulletproof knee. So one of the things you want to do is you want to focus a lot on ipsilateral or unilateral activation of the muscles and tendons in the area. One of my favorite things to do for knee pain, especially above and below it, is to do wall sits. Now, I'm not saying go into a deep squat all the way down, but even if you're against the wall and you lower yourself just a little bit to maybe slightly above 90 degrees, that's going to be fantastic because what happens is you're focusing on the isotonic and the isometric contraction of those muscles and tendons. So isotonic means same tone, meaning the tone of the muscle itself is not changing. Isometric means it's not changing length either. So you're causing a muscle contraction without changing the length of the muscle or the tone of the muscle while you're holding it. What that's going to do is it's going to strengthen the tendons above and below it. Another thing you could do is focus on single leg activities like RDLs, single leg squats. Balancing is another big one. The more time you can spend balancing on one foot while doing different exercises will be super beneficial to your knee. Now, there's also pain inside the medial side of the knee as well as the lateral side of the knee. Medial side of the knee, there's not a whole lot going on as far as anatomy goes, but there's a couple areas to look at. There's one area right here called your pes anserine. There's three muscles that insert in that area. You have your sartorius muscle, which comes from the hip, crosses the quadriceps, goes down and inserts there. You also have your gracilis muscle, which is one of your groin muscles. But then you also have the tendon of the semitendinosus muscle, which is one of your hamstring muscles that inserts in that same area. Now, those areas converge in one spot and create kind of like a common insertion tendinous area. And so if those muscles are tight, it could pull on that area and cause a lot of pain there. There's also the meniscus. You have your medial meniscus, but you also have a lateral meniscus out here. Uh, Sometimes if you get weird clicking noises in your knee, it could be meniscus, especially if you've had some kind of physical trauma. Um, could be a few different things like tendons flipping over bones or even over other tendons. But that's usually what the clicking sound is. Now, the outside of the knee, this is where runners have more problems because you have this big thing called your IT band or your iliotibial band. Now, your IT band is the tendinous part of a muscle that comes from up here. So you have a muscle up here called your TFL or your tensor fasciae latae muscle. It's a little muscle up here that moves the hips side to side and becomes a big tendon about 4 fingers width here, comes down the knee, and as it gets right around here, it becomes very tendinous and very tight and very tough. So if you've ever foam rolled the outside of your thigh, you've probably been in a lot of pain because there's a lot of nerve endings in that area, and IT bands are not really meant to be rolled out, which we'll talk about in another video. But your IT band comes down through here and inserts right below the knee. Your IT band is one of the stabilizers. So when you're running and you are either in the air or on the ground, right? When you're on the ground, you have one foot on the ground. Your IT band is going to help stabilize the knee a lot more. Now, one of the things that happens, especially in newer runners, is as your body's beginning to adapt to those changes, muscles like the TFL and the IT band tendon, IT band, can become inflamed and become aggravated. So one of the things I do to help with IT band issues in a lot of my high school runners and a lot of my patients is we focus a lot on, one, we focus on cadence. We also focus on strengthening the hips. So let's talk about cadence. So the cadence is the amount of steps you take per minute while you're running. Now, when I was probably 10 or so years ago, I was doing a lot of running, a lot of uphill, a lot of downhill running, and I started to develop this pain in my knee that would not go away. And I did all the things, could not figure it out. And it wasn't until someone said, "You're not doing what you need to do." I mean, I was at the point where I was ready to give up running. Like it hurt so much all the time. It wasn't consistent. I didn't really know what to do. And this person said, "You need to run with a metronome." I'm like, what the heck are you talking about, a metronome? And what he meant was run with something that's going to give me an audible cue for when I know to step. So I downloaded this app on my phone, and it's still on my phone. I still use it occasionally, but it was this free metronome app that I set to about 175 to 180 beats per minute. Now, I did this because I wanted to see what that felt like. Now, I'm not saying that's the ideal cadence because everyone's a little different. And depending on what speed you're going and uphill or downhill, all these things, that cadence is going to change. But for me, what I discovered was my cadence was so terribly slow that it took a big adjustment to get used to even running 170 beats per minute. But within a week of doing that, all of my T-band pain went away. It took care of itself, and I've never had an issue with it since then. Now, every once in a while, I turn on the metronome app, I run with it to get used to that cadence once again. Just if I start to feel some tightness in here in different places, I want to be able to prepare for that. So I do use that metronome app. The other thing I do is I focus a lot on strengthening hips, specifically hip flexors, hip abductors, and hip extensors, because your hips, when you run, will drop from side to side. Now, when you run, you don't want your hips to drop super far because that means there's weakness. If your hips are dropping just a little bit, that's good. You don't want it to drop a ton though. And so I do different exercises to help with that. I do a lot of band work. I do hip flexion, like marches. I do abduction. I do clamshells. I do fire hydrants. I also do kickbacks, a lot of different things on the daily to strengthen that area, to strengthen my hips. So that is the anatomy of the knee. That's how we take care of it. And there's some things you can do.